So if you're moving to Norfolk, Virginia, in today's video, I'm going to talk about several neighborhoods, 6 to be exact, that are secret little nooks in Norfolk that you would never think exist. And they're great values because they're so overlooked and very nice neighborhoods for what you're paying. So we'll talk about them in all the different price ranges. So first, we're going to show you where Norfolk is. Zooming out, you'll see this. I've showed you this map before. Norfolk is on the western side of Virginia Beach, on the close to the Chesapeake Bay. So I'm going to show you the general range of Norfolk. See where the red line is. This is all Norfolk here. So the first neighborhood I'm talking about today is, if you look on the western side of Norfolk, you see over closer to the Norfolk Navy base, you got Interstate 64 and Interstate 564 that goes straight into the Norfolk Navy base. Well, right off of 64, you see these streets right here, right next to it, right west of 64 and Granby Street, right here. This is Granby Shores. Now, why am I talking about Granby Shores? Well, number one is for the price. I like the vibe of the neighborhood. So you get in there and it's going to, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, you know, the neighborhood itself it's got some nice sidewalks. You got a lot of trees. The tree coverage is actually one of the things I like the most about this neighborhood for what you're paying. 300 to 400, 425, 450 in some cases, and even of course 4 to 6 along the water. But a lot of these houses are going to be like three bedroom, 4 bedroom houses, 13, 14, 15, 18, 2,000 square foot. But because of where this neighborhood's located, you easily just drive right past it. And so the traffic in this neighborhood is not necessarily that high. You might be going through either to Granby Shores or possibly to Commodore Park, which is right next to here. You see this tree coverage. The lot sizes are pretty, standard for what you get in Norfolk, but I do think that because of where this is located in Norfolk, I like the fact that it's so secluded. Now, with that, you'll find some houses with garages as well. So a garage under 4 in Norfolk, also a pretty nice value. What you'll find is also these houses were built mostly in the 50s and 60s, sometimes even earlier than that. So what you'll find too is the fact that some of these houses are going to be Cape Cod style houses. So houses that, they have that 2-bedroom on the downstairs and then maybe 2 bedrooms on the second floor. A lot of times with Zillow or, houses you see online is that it would be a 4-bedroom house and it'll say like 1,700 square feet. But when you go in there, you see the pitched roof. When you have to take the steps up to the second floor in some of these houses, they're going to have smaller ceilings or smaller upstairs bedrooms. So it might not feel like a traditional 4-bedroom house. So that's one of the drawbacks to this neighborhood, is that in this time period of houses is that the Cape Cod style houses might have bedrooms that don't feel as big. So if you see a 1,800 square foot Cape Cod style, it might actually be like it might feel like a 1,500 or 1,600 square foot house because of these small, roof sizes and kind of small configuration of how the walls are situated too. So it just might not feel the same as other houses with the similar square footage. Now, I like the fact that you can get in this neighborhood under 400,000, 375, 385, 360, 400, and also being this close to the Norfolk Navy base, which is again right around the corner. You have multiple gates that are close to the neighborhood, and you can also take Granby Street up and get to Ocean View within a few minutes also. So several things that are close, but you don't even really feel like you're in the middle of Norfolk. You're kind of tucked away in the corner. Now, if you notice though, there's a creek that's right behind Granby Shores. And on that creek, there are some houses that face the base. And those houses can be upwards of, the 4s, 5s, and 6s, maybe even a little bit more than that for the big ones. But if you notice, that you have a view of the water. So while you have the view of the water, it's not as easy access to the rest of the water around the neighborhood. So you don't really have a really great access to an area where you can put big boats. It's not that kind of a creek or water area, but it's real nice for views. Now, a drawback, I guess, would be that the view from the water could be a view of the water and the military base, which isn't necessarily the most ideal, but it's a real nice serene setting. You'll see some houses in here in the 25 or up square foot range. You'll see them sometimes priced over 450, 5 and up, because again, some of these are on the water, or bigger ones that are renovated are going to be in that over 5 price range, but you can get some real nice value in the 350 to 450 price range in Granby Shores. There are some drawbacks to being in Granby Shores as well. One is going to be your access from the main road. Bayview Boulevard is one example. You can only get in a couple different directions, Evans Street and Bayview Boulevard. And you're going to drive underneath Interstate 64, as you see right here. And if you look on the street view, there's a lot of construction and a lot of just weird herky-jerky traffic underneath and through around this the underpass of 64. And so you have to get through that to get to the neighborhood. That's kind of frustrating to me, and one of the drawbacks to being in the neighborhood. But number two is you see all this activity here with the roadways. Well, you also have the interstate blockades on the side, the sound barriers. So while that's nice because they're there, the fact that they're there implies that you've got a lot of road noise, which is true too. So if you're closer to this side of the neighborhood, that's annoying to me also. Now, another thing is that because you're so close to the base, you might actually hear more jets. And so the noise in general in this area is a bit higher. Now, you don't usually hear too much about jet noise in Norfolk, but if you look at the ACU's jet noise zone map, you'll see that it does fall in an elevated jet noise zone area. So you don't just come to Norfolk and then assume that you're going to hear nothing. Now going to the second neighborhood is going over towards the airport, towards the east side of Norfolk. And if you look, you'll see Lake Whitehurst. I'm a huge fan of Lake Whitehurst because similar reasons to the creek we just talked about is Lake Whitehurst does not have the big boat access that you would have in a lot of different water areas in Norfolk, but it has some amazing water views close to the botanical gardens, easy access to the airport, but a nice convenient place. But the views are awesome, and you can get a cheaper opportunity for water views without having to pay for the big boat water access price. So I like areas around Lake Whitehurst for that reason. Now, the specific neighborhood in this case is the Gardens. And now there are two sides of the Gardens. There's like the older side, 80s, 90s. Then there's a newer side, 2000s, 2010s. So on the south side of the Gardens is right here. This is like Honeysuckle Road, Sharon Circle right here. This is the Gardens on one side. Then if you go around Oleo Road on this side, like Martone Road, this area here near Azalea Point, this is all the newer side. The older side is going to be mostly in the 4s and 5s. Of course, if you're on the water, you're going to up that a bit, up in the 5s and up. But on the newer side, it's going to be ranging from the 5s and 8 range. Again, on the water, you're talking 7 and 8. But you'll see different styles. If you want a newer style house in Norfolk, you might have options that are newer, that are like new houses in pre-existing neighborhoods that aren't necessarily as ideal. Sometimes those neighborhoods are a bit older and don't look as nice as the new houses you're buying. But in this neighborhood, you're going to have newer houses, 2000s, 2010s, on the north side of the Gardens that are all similarly built. And so it feels very aesthetically, consistent. And so that's hard to find with this style of house in Norfolk. That's one of the reasons why I like the Gardens also, in this part of the Gardens. But both are fine. You have different styles of houses on different sides. And so I'm going to drop a pin here so you can see on the older side. You see these are in the 80s and 90s. Maybe late 90s. You've seen this in other neighborhoods, like even in Virginia Beach, houses like this in Virginia Beach, maybe even Chesapeake. You've got those brick ranches, some 2-story, that type of thing in this side of the Gardens. But if you go to the newer side, you see over here, like these are nice big houses on the water. Like some of these are going to be over 7 and 8. They haven't sold in a while, but a lot of the comps of these ranch style, even the 2-story that are off the water, you're talking 6 to 8 in the newer side of the Gardens neighborhood. Again, some of the best water access views without having to pay for the boat access price. Some are more elegant than others. You have a variety here, and that's another reason why I like it too, is the variety. And if you see here, zooming out, you're close to the botanical gardens. So literally, you come out of your neighborhood, go south, you're across the water on Lake Whitehurst, and you can turn it, and you're right at the botanical gardens. So also the airport's right there too. Now next, zooming out, going down to the south part of Norfolk is over very close to Virginia Beach, closer to Military Circle. But you see in this little nook here, you got 264, you've got Route 13, which is Military Highway, and then 64 West, or 64 East and West right here. Well, if you cross over 64 and 264 and get down into this nook right here, this is Elizabeth Park. This is very close to a lot of other main roads, like I just mentioned, which makes this extremely convenient. The neighborhood in here it's a very classic Norfolk house style neighborhood, but very well wooded. And because there aren't many houses in here, they don't sell very often. For what you're paying, you're going to be paying in the 3s, 4s, and 5s mostly for a house in Elizabeth Park. Sidewalks are also a thing. Again, not as common as you might think in other parts of Norfolk. And it's also, while you're close to a lot of different parts of town, it will still feel very quiet and it feels like no one knows you're there. And it's true. And if you see that this water access is actually the Elizabeth River. So some of these, they're on the water. You can find them over like 600, 700, 800 and up those unique ones that you don't really see too much for sale, just because, those houses with water access, this is more the closer to the deep water access type thing that you don't see as much like, in around the Lake Whitehurst area we were just talking about. So those houses you're going to be paying in the upper echelon just because of the water access. But other than that, you can be in the same neighborhood and be in the 4s and 5s and even 3s. So it kind of depends on what your preferences are as far as how much you want to pay. And I'm always a fan of trying to find the best vibe that I can under $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000. And for this neighborhood in Elizabeth Park, you're gonna be in like the 15 to 2,000 square foot range. You'll see some in the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot. The big ones on the water are gonna be pushing that number some too. In some cases, you can be in the 4s, 5s, or even under 4 range for maybe a well-kept but dated house, and be in a real good spot, be in a really convenient location, and I like that, and it's just a great vibe. You can even get to the bases in not too long either. Now, one of the things I'd say the drawback to living in Elizabeth Park is if you zoom out, you see the map here, see the railroad tracks? Well, I'm gonna drop a pin. You're gonna see that as you leave the neighborhood, it feels a little bit commercial. Like, this is not actually a railroad track as much as it is the light rail. The light rail comes right through the area next to Elizabeth Park. Now, this is not a stop, an actual stop. You just have to cross over this to get out of the neighborhood, which can be annoying because, if you're going to be driving out regularly, it can be frustrating. But you're going to be close to places where you can get on the light rail. Personally, I'm not a huge light rail fan. I don't think this is necessarily a big benefit, but to each their own. But personally, I'm just glad the fact that you're away from all the other busy roads, and I think that's what makes Elizabeth Park more appealing to me. But driving out of here, I think one of the drawbacks could also be that you have other strip malls and businesses that are around the neighborhood that just don't feel as new. It's kind of an old, tired area outside of the neighborhood, and personally, it doesn't really bother me as much because of the neighborhood you get. But again, you got some used car lots, some commercial buildings, all this area here, not necessarily as ideal to be close to this, in my opinion. Another drawback is going to be these age houses in the 50s and 60s. You can see some cast iron or galvanized pipe, like waistlines that go to the street, for example. They're known to break down pretty easily. You might have some houses where you got to replace those. That can be $10,000, $12,000 or more in some cases. It requires the labor and the materials to replace that line. That's going to be the case in most of Norfolk because of the ages of the houses, but it's still a drawback to me to where I think it's worth mentioning here, even though because it's a newer house neighborhood relative to a lot of parts of Norfolk, but you don't want to just let go of the fact that it's still an old house or an old house neighborhood. But for the price, $400,000, $500,000, I think that's totally fine to you give up some stuff to get some stuff. I like what you get in the low 4s, mid 4s especially. Now on that same note, if you zoom out of Elizabeth Park, just going south from there's a neighborhood as you come out of 64. So from Elizabeth Park, going over across near 264 near Curlew Drive, you take Newtown down and go all the way around. There is a neighborhood called Pleasant Point that wraps around here that, again, one road in, so you don't really notice this. It's like a big cul-de-sac. This is off of 64 and close to the water on the Elizabeth River. These are a bit newer, and this is one of the reasons why I like it too. You'll find these in the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot range, or the 3 to 4, sometimes even larger than that. Big ones that are going to be anywhere from the 5s, 6s, and 7s upwards. If you're on the water, it could be over 7, over 8. And up for those specific exclusive ones on the water. But if you notice here, you got some more of a McMansion style. You get a lot of trees, the sidewalks, the trees along the sidewalks. I like that a lot. They're well manicured in most cases. You're going to have some unique ones too. Like for example, this one has like that gazebo-esque looking porch thing. It's kind of a mixture in here, and they're going to be newer houses though, built in the 2000s, built in the 90s. So that style is nice for Norfolk. And as you go further back on Peacehaven Drive, this one specifically has a lot of trees on it, especially where if you drive through the neighborhood, it just feels really, really shaded, really well wooded. And as you drive back in the back of Peacehaven, you're up on the water. So about half of Peacehaven is on the water. Even Pleasant Point, some of it is too. And so great views, great boat access. You can get to downtown Norfolk from there if you wanted to. So some of those that have the long docks, you're going to be paying for it. They're not all in the 5, 6s, and 7s. So you're going to be 8 and up, 9 a million. That's what water access costs in some cases nowadays too. So it's going to be hard to move away from that. Now, with the benefit to being in the corner, like in this big cul-de-sac, and you're also very accessible to a lot of things, even though you're kind of winding around into a deep corner of Norfolk. The drawback here is that you're still very close to the Interstate 64 roadway. And so if you have water access or close to water access, you either have the view of the interstate from your house, or you can also hear it from your house, or I guess often both. Next, that can be a negative to me. It does kind of throw off the vibe to me, but you're going to get a little bit cheaper, house view, all things considered, kind of package for that. So you kind of have to take kind of the positives with the negatives for the price range. And so now next is one of the few neighborhoods in Norfolk with an HOA. So zooming out, going to go back over to the western side of Norfolk. We're towards an area that's close to some real nice, some real in-demand parts of Norfolk. If you go over towards Stowell Street, go south from there, you'll see Lakewood. You see Lakewood right there, and then Willowwood that takes you over towards Granby Street in Ghent. Well, going just below Willowwood Drive, Norway Place right here, well, there are two sides of this neighborhood. This neighborhood I'm talking about is called Lafayette Shores. Lafayette Shores, on this side, is an HOA. It's got, houses so driving down Willowwood's a real nice drive, by the way, that takes you over towards Ghent. But this is a quasi, not gated, but you see kind of fancy gates on the sides of the entrance. Very nice entranceway that takes you into the neighborhood. These houses are built in the 80s and 90s mostly. You'll see a few that are like newer construction, but big clubhouse as you drive in. But these houses are going to be 3,000 square feet and up, 4,000 and even 5,000 and up square feet. Very nice trees, well manicured streets and lawns. I love this neighborhood for the fact that you can get the clubhouse, you can get the pool, just over $100 a month HOA fees as of 2025. Comes with exercise room, you got a pool, you got tennis courts, and you do have some water access on the sides. Those are going to be normally like $1 million and up because they're going to be big houses and on the water. And it's a very unique neighborhood. So I think if you want a newer style of house, I like this area partly just because it's so different to what you might find in most of Norfolk. So I do like the fancy. I'm not a huge fancy kind of guy, but these, for what you're paying for, if you want this style of house, this is the option you have mostly. And so I do think that in general, one of the biggest drawbacks I find from people talking to me about Norfolk is it's hard to find newer houses. And again, newer houses that are also the bigger variety, 3,000 plus square foot. This is one of the only times where you can find this unless you want a new construction house in an older neighborhood. This is a very unique style, and it's hard to find this kind of style for any price range, but it's going to be, in this case, 6s and up, 7s and up. Most of them are going to be anywhere from like the 7 to 9 range. But again, if you're on the water, you're going to be paying more, over $1 million. Now, there's another side of Lafayette Shores. If you cut down Boyce Drive, go all the way towards Ellsworth Place right here. Now, once you cross from this part of Lafayette Shores, there's another side. And if you look online, if you look at houses online, you might see Lafayette Shores houses that are not in here. They look older. They look a lot cheaper. Well, that's because there's a Lafayette Shores side that's on the other side of the neighborhood closer to Tidewater Drive. So this side is going to be more like in the 3s and 4s. So drop a pin over here. Different vibe, older houses like 40s, 50s, and they're going to be a bit cheaper. Sometimes they're a bit weird floor plans. I've seen these in here, and they're not always like super ideal for just a very natural flow of a house in some cases, but it's a nice vibe for the price. Again, 3 to 4 is not too uncommon. Just wanted to drop that nugget in there in case you look in Lafayette Shores in this area, you might find one that's cheaper, and maybe this is something that might be more up your alley if you want this price range. Going to draw back in here is that you're closer to Tidewater Drive. Tidewater Drive definitely is like the line between the older part of town and the newer or more in demand, trees, colonial style houses part of town. If you drop a pin between Willowwood Drive and Tidewater Drive, where Willowwood Drive is going towards Lafayette Shores, the HOA, that's where Lafayette Shores, the HOA, is that direction. But here is Tidewater Drive, an older part of town. Strip malls really haven't been changed that much. Yeah, it's just kind of, this is what it is, Tidewater Drive. And going this side, you can have houses on this side that are more like in the 2s and 3s price range. Then go on this side, you have houses more like in the, again, 4, 5, and up price range across the other side of Tidewater Drive. Now, the last neighborhood I want to mention is close to Lafayette Shores. Going over to Granby Street, this one is in a series of a bunch of neighborhoods close to it that I like. River Point, Belvedere, Cramwell Farms, Talbot Park. A lot of these are in the same part of town that are in the area closest to Ghent or Granby Street that has no flood insurance required as of right now. And this area that I'm talking about here is Ellsworth. So Ellsworth, there are some dead end streets that come off of Granby Street that end, close to a creek or just at the end of the street. You kind of have to turn around. This neighborhood, Ellsworth, is in the 3s and low to mid 4s. Very nice for the price. You do have a lot of Cape Cod style houses, which you might not like if that's not your thing, which we've talked about the reasons why. But if you don't mind that, very quiet, because you only come in here if you have to. A bunch of dead end streets, very well, kind of has a nice Norfolk vibe to it. Same goes with the sidewalks, but you can get to Granby Street and the rest of town very easily. You're right here. You can go up towards Ocean View. You can go even down towards Ghent in only a few minutes. Both options are there, and you have several neighborhoods. You have several streets that are the same. As you come out of here, again, 350 to 425, 450 is going to be the norm in here. You'll find that they're all a bit smaller lot sizes, which kind of keeps the prices lower. These are going to be mostly built in the 40s, maybe even the 50s. Again, that cast iron pipe dynamic old house problems can be a common theme in here. It's definitely something you got to keep in mind, but again, it's Norfolk. It's something that commonly happens in Norfolk, is dealing with the kind of the refurbishing of these old houses that might not be totally retrofitted from the old times. So that you can get a cheaper house in here for that reason too, but you might be paying more to renovate it. So just keep that in mind. So you'll find some that are 2 bedrooms that are like in the low 300s, but 12, 1,500 square foot to like the 15, 18, 2,000 square foot range, and the 350 to 450 price range is pretty common in a place like Ellsworth. And again, if you like that Norfolk vibe and don't want to pay as much for other parts of Norfolk that have similar vibes, maybe just have larger lots, or you're closer to Ghent or something, I like Ellsworth for that reason. And you're not paying the flood insurance that you might have to pay in other parts of Norfolk also. So big fan of that as well. So if you have any more questions about relocating to Norfolk or any other part of Hampton Roads from Virginia Beach all the way through Williamsburg, let me know. It's what I do. I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have any questions, I have my contact information in the description. You can email me, you can call me, you can text me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. If you want to learn more about the area, the Norfolk area, Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach to Williamsburg, I have a couple videos here that I think will help give you more details to help you make your decision about your move and relocation to the Norfolk and Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area.